Today we have with us Laurie Faso, voice of Orion Pax.
Second string here, second string.
Michael Horton, voice of Chip Chase. And Neil Ross, voice of Springer and many others, as I recall. We like to start things off with just sort of a general question of how did you guys get into voice acting and how did you get into Transformers in particular?
They've stumped the panel with the opening question.
I started out as an actor, and I think all of us did, because you can't be a voice actor without being an actor. And I actually studied, I even have a master's degree in drama, you know, what the hell, it makes a nice placemat these days. But I started in New York, doing shows in New York, and this was in the early to mid 70s. And I discovered voiceover. I ran into some people who did it, and at that point there was no animation in New York, but there was a lot of radio commercials, some of which were very silly and really a lot of fun. So I started doing those, and it was great, wonderful. Then when those shows were over, well, I did a TV show for CBS, a children's show. You're all too young. It was called Marlowe and the Magic Movie Machine. Yeah, you're way too young. The people who watch that are in their 50s and 60s now. But I did that in New York and then moved out here and just started auditioning. At the time, you had to have a tape, a voice tape. At that time, it was reel-to-reel. You guys remember reel-to-reel?
Well, I'm so old, I had a 78 RPM disc.
Without a hole in it.
I would have killed for that.
So I started auditioning, and things worked out well. There was a lot of animation then, a lot of Saturday morning cartoons, and you know, some of the voice casting people did more than one show. So at one point, I had auditioned for Transformers for Wally Burr, and we got along, and that started it. So that's the way it went.
Like Laurie and like probably the rest of the cast in Transformers, I was an actor. I was doing a lot of theater. I was doing a lot of television, and a good way to supplement your income while you were waiting for your next job or auditioning for your next job was to do voiceover work or commercials. And I started doing a little voiceover work, and one thing led to another. And I got Chip Chase primarily from Wally Burr because he heard from another director I worked with in a voice show, and I didn't even audition. He just gave it to me, and then he allowed me to do a couple of G.I. Joe episodes, and I think I worked for him for other shows, and I just can't remember the names of them because we're talking, 40 years ago. But a lot of shows led from one to the next, and doing these animated shows was, I think the LA Times called it one time when they came in to watch a session. It was the best show in town. You had the best actors, 12 actors with a microphone, some of the extraordinary performances, improv artists, lots of laughter, I mean a lot of laughter, and a lot of just jaw-dropping stuff. The talent was just amazing. So going from one show to the next was an honor, and I had a ball. I just had a ball doing these shows, and I think everybody else did.
Yep.
Well, my rise to fame and fortune is chronicled in my book, Vocal Recall, A Life in Radio and Voiceovers.
Should have brought it up.
Well, yeah.
I would have held it up.
I didn't even know I was doing a panel today. We were way late in the parking lot and told, no lunch for you unless you do this. The audience is becoming restless. They're throwing vegetables and things. But anyway, if the book interests you at all, stop by my little, whatever we call it, where I sign autographs, and I'll give you a postcard, and that'll help you track it down. It's on Amazon, and it's also on Audible. There's an audio version narrated by me in my disturbingly masculine voice. And anyway, to answer the question, it's really long and involved, but basically I started at the age of, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years old, listening to the radio and being fascinated by the voices and accents that I heard, and beginning to try to reproduce them, which led to my father say, I got a son who talks to himself. This is good. This will turn out well. And then I got seduced by rock and roll music and became a disc jockey and did that for 20 years. And as I traveled through the radio circles, I began to hear about this strange business, which nobody knew about in those days. It was called voiceovers. And I thought, oh my God, this sounds like the perfect job for me. And so I managed to get to Los Angeles and worm my way into what was then a very small, little-known business, populated by some absolutely stunningly talented and wonderful people.
Yeah.
And I have had nothing but fun for the next 30-odd years. It has just been a pleasure. And but unlike, not to make a liar out of Laurie, but I really didn't have much of an acting background. I mostly do it by instinct. And honestly, when I was working on Transformers and G.I. Joe, Michael Bell, I'm sure you're familiar with his name. He was in both of those shows. He was giving cartoon voice acting classes at night.
Really?
So I would go to his class at night, and then in the morning we'd show up to work. And you know, I was desperately playing catch up in the acting department, but somehow or other it worked out. The question is, how did you break into this business? Ladies and gentlemen, Beau Weaver.
I wasn't scheduled to be on this panel, but they saw me wandering around, looking at the toys, and they took pity on me and said, why don't you come in here and sit down. And anyway, I was Octane in the G1 series, and I did a couple of other, I stumbled into a couple of other roles that were great honors and way above my pay grade as a voice actor, because most of my work has been as a narrator, but I got to do the role of Superman for Ruby Spears in 1988, and I got to do the role of Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four in the 1994 series for Marvel. So, but like Neil, I started off in radio and found my way into the voiceover world. And I was sitting in my agent's office one day, and Michael Bell and another actor were rehearsing some auditions for some animated cartoon series. And I looked at Michael, and I said, I've always thought that maybe that would be kind of fun. Maybe I'll give that a try sometime. And Michael looked at me with kind of a sneer, and he closed his eyes and said, I don't think so, Beau. You see, you're from, and his lip kind of curled, broadcasting. And this is for actors. Yeah. So Michael Bell thinks I can't do this, huh? That's interesting. Well, a minute ago, I was sort of interested in voice acting. Now, I'm going to do this if it kills me. So I went and put together a little demo of what I thought animation voices sounded like, and I gave it to my agent, whose name was Arlene Thornton, and her husband, Jack Angel, who was also a wonderful voice actor who was in 1,000 things. They called me in the afternoon, and they said, we want to talk to you about this demo tape you gave us. I said, oh, okay. And they said, well, first of all, you may not send this out at all. Now, we think you have some talent, but this is all wrong. This is just a tape of funny voices. And animation is really acting, not just funny voices. And in fact, Jack queued up a portion of the tape, and they said, you hear that voice right there? Yeah. That's a Dawes Butler voice, who is one of the greatest of all time.
Wow.
And he said, now, I don't think you set out to rip off Dawes Butler. I think you just grew up listening to him on cartoons, and you thought, oh, that's what cartoons sound like. But look, everybody in this town knows that that's a Dawes Butler imitation, and kind of a crappy one. So that's got to go. And you hear this voice here? Yeah. That's a Don Messick voice. And Don Messick lives up in Santa Barbara, and he still works, and they can get Don Messick if they want him, so that's got to go. And okay, hear this little accent you're doing here? It's terrible. You fall out about 4 times. So look, we think you maybe have a future in this, but not now. And there are some classes that you can take that we think might really help you get a handle on this. Oh, who teaches the classes? Michael Bell. But you know what? I ate my ego, and I said, okay, I'll be a beginner. And Michael had a really, really good class. Now, he was tough. He was tough as a director. He did not just go, oh, that was really nice. No, he told you the truth. And it was really good. And Jack Angel also said, we're also going to suggest that you take some beginning acting classes. And I went, oh man. Because as a radio guy, when my body was involved, I didn't know what to do. Because, radio performers are people who are performers who choose to go in a closet by themselves to perform where nobody can see us. And to perform where my body was part of it, I was very confused. But just like sometimes back in the old days, they would send NFL football players to ballet class to help them with fine motor skills and subtlety. It really did help. It really did help open me up a little bit. And the weird little entree into actually working. After I had done these classes for about a year and my agent gave me the go-ahead to put out a little demo, I did send out a demo, and I got a couple of jobs doing incidental voices in a couple of cartoons. Now, that's where they're chasing the guy, and there's a guy at the gas station, and he goes, "They went that away," So that's an incidental voice. And I got 1 or 2 of those, but I just couldn't bust through. It just wasn't happening. It had been about a year, and I got a call from my mother in Texas. And she asked me how it was going. I said, not so well. And she said, well, honey, I think you should just remember, you remember when you wrote that letter to Hanna-Barbera back when the Flintstones were popular? Oh, yeah. See, the Flintstones was the first network prime-time animated series, and it was really a huge phenomenon. And I was in the 3rd grade in Oklahoma, and I learned to draw Fred Flintstone, and sort of, And my grandmother had me writing letters to famous people all the time. So I wrote, "Dear Mr. Hanna, Mr. Barbera, I'm a 3rd grader in Oklahoma, and as you can see, I can draw Fred Flintstone. Can you use me?" And I actually got a letter back, probably from his secretary, saying, "Dear little kid in Oklahoma, no, we don't use 3rd graders to animate our series, but you show some talent, and if you become a commercial artist and end up in Southern California, by all means, look us up and go for your dreams." And just a real nice, encouraging little letter. And my mother said, you should call up Hanna-Barbera and remind them about that letter you wrote. Mom, no, that's not, this is Hollywood. We have agents, we have managers, there's protocol, there's ways that these things work, and that's not it. So I didn't do anything, but another 6 months went by, and I went, well, what could it hurt? So I did. I wrote, "Dear Mr. Hannah, Mr. Barbera, you can't possibly remember this, but I wrote you a letter when I was in the 3rd grade, and I'm not a commercial illustrator, but I am a professional voice actor, and I've had no luck getting through to your casting people, and here's my little demo reel, and I would love it if you could give it to the people that need to hear it." And about 2 weeks later, I got a call from the head of my talent agency. I mean, the big guy, who I'd never even spoken to. Beau, TJ Escott, I have a booking for you for a general audition at Hanna-Barbera Studios. I said, "Oh my God, that's fantastic." He said, "Well, yes, but frankly, we're a little puzzled about how this came to be. Hanna-Barbera has not done general auditions for voice actors for quite some time. And if they did start again, our agency, being one of the top agencies, might be given 3 to 5 slots. And frankly, Beau, you are not one of the people that we would be thinking of, So I don't know how this happened." And I said, "Well, I guess they just recognize talent over there at Hanna-Barbera, So I went, and a general audition in those days, you prepare about 5 minutes of some characters that you think they might be interested in, and you just do them. And the wonderful voice director at Hanna-Barbera,
Jim McSwain?
Gordon Hunt.
Gordon Hunt, is Helen Hunt's father, who was also the artistic director at the Mark Taper, incredible director, and he was very generous with me because my little general audition was, B at best. And he kind of directed me a little bit and said, "Thank you so much for coming in." And I slunk out going, "Oh, I totally screwed that up." But then a week later, I got a booking on the series Flintstone Kids. I don't know if you remember that, but back when they had Muppet Babies, they then decided to do the Flintstones as children. And I got one little episode as Betty's older brother, And I just have a feeling that was the connection. They threw me a little bone, and from then on, I started booking in animation. So that's how it worked for me. So I've always said that the moral of the story is whatever your dream is, whatever you're trying to get into, use whatever you have to get in the door. Whatever it is, I don't care how stupid it is. If you get in the door, use it. And the second takeaway is listen to your mother. So.